Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and I am happy to be here. It is Monday, February the 8th, 5:30 in the morning, Calgary, Alberta time, nice, bright, and early, and I'm having coffee, just waking up here, and this is one child abuse survivor to another, and we'll be on about 15 minutes here, we're going to start talking about an article I found on healing emotional and psychological trauma. And it's a great article. I found it on HelpGuide at www.helpguide.org. And it's just a really good article on symptoms, treatment, and recovery, healing emotional and psychological trauma. So I'm glad you're here. This is it's not a professional show, and I don't have any professional certificates or counseling certificates or anything like that. I'm just a person who sits on Blog Talk Radio, and so I just want to make sure everybody knows and is aware of that. And I'm just a one survivor walking out my own healing, and I also study human rights, child rights at MRU. I'm in between classes, taking some time off. I didn't like the work that I produced the last course, and I got a good grade, but it wasn't what it could have been. So I thought, okay, I better take a break and just do something else. So that's how this Blog Talk Radio show came about. And I just want everybody to know I'm not a professional, and I do actually promote getting professional help. Probably will myself down the road, and I'm just like a friend, someone just to say you're not alone if you've experienced any of these issues of child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault. You're not alone, and that there's ways to reach out and get some help. So that's why I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're under the age of 18, please make sure someone listens to this with you, because the topics of abuse and the issues surrounding abuse are really quite scary. And if you're just a young person, I'm not sure where the players are now. People it's really awesome, the support I've been getting, but I'm not sure where some of the players are sitting, so I'm not sure who's listening. And I just think, a young person, this can really bother people when they hear about abuse and they hear about some of these things. So I think it's good to have somebody with you so that they can, someone with a good head on their shoulders, so they can kind of explain things maybe a little bit more. And then if you're having a little bit of difficulty understanding it, they can kind of, share some information with you as well. So that's why I ask everybody to listen at your own discretion, because if this subject, of trauma and child abuse or anything like that can cause triggering, and if this is something that you think is just going to bother you, I would hope you would just turn it off. It's just not worth listening to. So we'll get right into it this morning here. And this article you can find www.helpguide.org. It's called Healing Emotional and Psychological Trauma, Symptoms, Treatment, and Recovery. And we read a little bit of that on Friday morning. And it says, when bad things happen, it can take a while to get over the pain and feel safe again. But treatment and support from family and friends can speed your recovery from emotional and psychological trauma. Whether the traumatic event happened years ago or yesterday, you can heal and move on. And so I think this is great. I know myself, I like to find articles that are, promoting healing and treatment and recovery and stuff like that, because it's so important, right? As a survivor of child abuse, living in a domestic violence situation, there was a lot of stress and a lot of trauma, and then just people just in their daily lives, even if you grew up in a great home and stuff, there's other things that can cause trauma. Any experience that is upsetting and just so upsetting to you that it can cause you to have trauma in your life, and like a car accident, things like that, right? So this is a really good article. I'm just going to start reading. It says, what is emotional and psychological trauma? Emotional and psychological trauma is the result of extraordinarily stressful events that shatter your sense of security, making you feel helpless and vulnerable in a dangerous world. Traumatic experiences often involve a threat to life or safety, but any situation that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and alone can be traumatic, even if it doesn't involve physical harm. It's not the objective facts that determine whether an event is traumatic, but your subjective emotional experience of the event. The more frightened and helpless you feel, the more likely you are to be traumatized. So it says, a stressful event is most likely to be traumatic if, and they list off all this stuff here, it happened unexpectedly, you were unprepared for it, and then you felt powerless to prevent it. it happened repeatedly, someone was intentionally cruel, or it happened in childhood. So those are some stressful events that they say that are most likely to be traumatic, right? Excuse me. Emotional and psychological trauma can be caused by single blow, one-time events, such as a horrible accident, a natural disaster, or a violent attack. Trauma can also stem from ongoing relentless stress, such as living in a crime-ridden neighborhood or struggling with cancer. So it can be something that happens to people one time and that was just so stressful, and then it can also stem from things that are just ongoing. For instance, living in a crime-ridden neighborhood. So it's quite interesting. Commonly overlooked sources of emotional and psychological trauma: falls or sports injuries, surgery, especially in the first 3 years of life, the sudden death of someone close, an auto accident, the breakup of a significant relationship, excuse me, a humiliating or deeply disappointing experience, the discovery of a life-threatening illness or disabling condition. So all of those things are often overlooked, and they are very traumatic, right? Injuries and sports injuries and surgery and auto accidents and marriage or relationships break down. These things can all, have a huge effect on people, as we all know. And so, this is what, they are saying, that those are kind of commonly overlooked as sources of trauma that cause trauma. And so just about anything that happens unexpectedly that we aren't prepared for, that really upsets us, and it was so horrible that when we experienced it, it can cause trauma. It says, not all potentially traumatic events lead to lasting emotional and psychological damage. Some people rebound quickly from even the most tragic and shocking experiences. Others are devastated by experiences that on the surface appear to be less upsetting. A number of risk factors make people susceptible to emotional and psychological trauma. People are more likely to be traumatized by a stressful experience if they're already under a heavy stress load or have recently suffered a series of losses. People are also more likely to be traumatized by a new situation if they've been traumatized before, especially if the earlier trauma occurred in childhood, right? And that's just so true. I mean, that happened in our family. We were already having a hard time as a family, and a lot of abuse and just a lot of depression and anger. And then one of my brothers was killed, and that just made it worse. Everybody spun off, and it was so traumatic that we didn't know how to cope with it. We were already not coping. My parents were already brought up on child abuse charges, and then to have that happen, they really spiraled into a whole range of emotions because of losing their son and my brother. And he was killed, and I was 8 years old, and it really threw the family into a huge downward spiral, right? We were already not doing well, and that just made it just that much worse. So, trauma on top of trauma, it gets to be too much, right? And people have a hard time coping, right? It says childhood trauma increases the risk of future trauma. Traumatic experiences in childhood can have a severe and long-lasting effect. Children who have been traumatized see the world as a frightening and dangerous place. When childhood trauma is not resolved, this fundamental sense of fear and helplessness carries over into adulthood, setting the stage for further trauma. It says, childhood trauma results from anything that disrupts a child's sense of safety and security, including an unstable or unsafe environment, separation from a parent, serious illness, intrusive medical procedures, sexual, physical, or verbal abuse, domestic violence, neglect, and bullying. So those are things that really can cause a child to see the world as a frightening and dangerous place, right? And I know I experienced, a lot of that. And, the world is just not a happy place for children when they're growing up around unstable and unsafe environments and abuse and violence and neglect and bullying. And then then if you didn't grow up in an abusive home, there's things like, maybe your parents separated or serious illness was in the family or yourself, and intrusive medical procedures and things like that. They can all really cause a child to have some serious long-lasting effects from trauma, right? It says how childhood trauma affects adult relationships. The quality of the attachment bond between mother and baby affects the child's ability, even as an adult, to feel safe in the world, trust others, handle stress, and rebound from disappointment. Early life trauma disrupts this important attachment bond, resulting in adult relationship difficulties. The good news is that the skills you need to build good relationships can be learned later in life, and I've found that out. And and they have a link here. You can click on it. If you go on the website www.helpguide.org, they have a little link there. You can click on that, and it's called Emotional Intelligence EQ. 5 key skills for raising your emotional intelligence. They have a whole little workshop type thing there, and I was checking that out. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's the thing. I've never gone to counseling or anything, or been to a therapist or anything, but I know I've just over the years of reading about like attachment disorders and things like that that it's very serious, and a lot of children deal with this on a daily basis, and millions have dealt with it, and it's sad to say, and so it can really have a huge effect on children. And we've got about 3 minutes left. Tomorrow we're going to look at symptoms of emotional and psychological trauma. And then we're going to look at when to seek professional help for emotional or psychological trauma, and also finding a trauma specialist. Lots of good tips here. Treatment for psychological and emotional trauma. We'll look at that this week. This is what we're going to cover this week in the morning at 5:30. So I'm glad I could be here, and I'm just going to read out some resources right now that I have, and let me just find those for you. There's some great resources. Well, I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, first of all, and I'm so happy to stand with them. You can go right on their website, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. I actually just type it right into my browser, dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. They have a great website. The resources on there are awesome. I have a whole page of stuff written out about them, and I one day want to do a show just on what it's all about. But I know Dreamcatchers Talk Radio is coming up tomorrow night at 6:30, and I'll be co-hosting with Donna Shear, and she's an awesome lady. She's an author. She's the president of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. She co-authors with Sandra Potter, Sandra Dawn Potter, the CEO and founder, and I'm telling you, this is going to be one good show. The first show is an introduction, really, about only 15 minutes, but the next show's once a week. We're going to be on the air, and she's going to have different guests, different co-hosts, and it's going to be awesome. I hope you can tune in, and you can find that at www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers, and I hope you will join us. And because it's going to be some good information, and Donna Shear's got a heart of gold, just like Sandra Potter, and the two of them are just, such a huge inspiration in my life and in so many people's lives, not just mine. Thousands and thousands of people. They have helped so many people. I wanted to talk about the Guardians of the Children. The Guardians of the Children, they are a family within itself that share a passion for helping the innocent and fighting child abuse. Their mission, our mission, is to raise awareness, serve to protect, and to aid any child in need in our area. They have chapters all over the United States. The Long Island chapter of the Guardians of the Children is you can find their website at www.goc-cogly. So be sure and get a hold of me. They share a passion for riding motorcycles and helping victims of child abuse. They are really big time. They are doing some awesome work, and I just think that if you want to get a hold of them, they have a raffle for a motorcycle going on right now. You can contact them. You can contact them at 631-569-2629. If you need some more information, get a hold of me. And that's the Long Island chapter of the Guardians of the Children. But you can go on their website and see the national website. They have chapters everywhere. I think that's just awesome. More power to you, everybody, and all those guys. I love it. And there is a Child Abuse Monument. Linda Lee is my good friend. She's a survivor, and she has a website, www.artbylindalee.com. And she was a participant in the Child Abuse Monument. You want to check her website out. Everybody take care. I'll be back on tonight, 9:30, and make sure you reach out and get some help, okay? Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.